Howdy, howdy. Imagine that. We've got back camera today. We've got a nice angle. Nick must be feeling alright. He is. I is. Whatever. I'm pulling these off because I don't like the glare. And I'm actually going to be speaking to camera for once today. So, gotta pay attention to stuff like that. Nearly pulled my cover down to clean my glasses with my shorts. Remembered not to because, I don't know, male presenting nipple and all that good stuff. Gee, remember that mess. Remember when Tumblr was the biggest of our problems. Anyway, so, what's got me in a good mood today? I don't know. The mood of the house is good, and that reflects on me. I slept better, still kind of hard, still some weird dreams, but I can only remember that they were weird. I don't think I could retell them today. So they didn't stick with me like they did yesterday. Didn't oversleep as long as I did yesterday. And it's probably because around 1 o'clock there was banging as my parents were cleaning out the cabinets. And they hadn't told me they were doing it, or I would have gotten them help, and they didn't come and get me, which I know sounds like excuses, but they're the ones that made them. Because I went in there and I said, I'm sorry, y'all should have told me and all that good stuff, and they said, no, we didn't tell you, because we figured we could get it done. It was just the one on the ground, so Daddy could just sit down and clean, you know. So I told them, you know. They said, we didn't come get you, we didn't let you know we were doing it. If we needed you, we would have come got you. I said, good. So that made me feel better. Got up, played a little bit of Monster Hunter. I finally broke. I'm rewatching Vinny's Rimworld stream, Season 1. And it is the exact wonderful mess that I remember it was the first time around. And I don't care that it's probably going to take me all week to finish it off. It's just so good. Last night, however, did end on a bit of a downer that I was able to spin, thankfully. Mom and I split a pizza, the pan was still in here, I was getting up, getting ready to go to bed. Went to the kitchen to rinse it out, half figured I was going to clean out the sink for her, and then full flat-footed, sleepy hard walk into a massive ice-cold puddle of dog piss. Like, hit it hard enough that the top of my foot was wet. My other foot, which was a good 2 feet away from the dog piss, was wet. I flopped into that thing like a 2-year-old playing in a puddle because I didn't know it was there. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna clean this pizza pan, go wash my foot, and go to bed. And then when I went to flop down on my bed, as I tend to do sometimes, face down, I got about that far away from the pillow before I locked my arms because I realized I had not taken my glasses off and I was about to just eat pillow with my glasses on, doing probably irreparable damage to both the glasses and my face. So I was really batting 1,000 last night. Those of you in the Discord who were around at 3 o'clock this morning, my local time anyway, will know this already. But no, after that, I slept pretty good. I didn't get to sleep till late, but I got up, you know, like I said, not long after noon, somewhere between noon and 1:30. I know that's a wide spectrum, but I woke up several times before I got out of bed, so I'm not really sure where to exactly call it. Sat down, was playing some more Monster Hunter, and at the same time half watching Vinny, and I kept getting distracted by my phone and by Vinny, and you can't pause Monster Hunter, period. So I decided that even though I was settling into it fairly well, it was going well with my Pro Controller, I just really like the feel of this controller. It's just really nice in the hands. I do get buttons backwards all the time because, you know, Nintendo and Sony were the progenitors of, specifically Nintendo was the progenitor of the 4-button layout on a controller, and they set a standard that no one else really repeated. Sony did for a while, or at the very least they did in Japan, keeping circle as accept and X as back out, which honestly does make more sense, but then again, after the Super Nintendo, Nintendo broke controller conventions by changing the layout. So, honestly, they're one of the reasons, if you look at the N64 controller, they're one of the reasons I got used to A being on the bottom. And then the GameCube had a very interesting design, which I still like. It's very easy to get to all the buttons on a GameCube controller. I still really like that design. I like the way it sits in my hands. But I've come to appreciate the more uniform style, because like I said, my favorite for the longest was the 360 controller. I liked the weight of it, I liked the feel of it. Another thing that can both be a complaint and a bonus is the Switch doesn't have analog shoulder buttons, which is one of the reasons for the longest I figured we weren't going to get a Mario Sunshine re-release, because, well, in my head, it depended heavily on them being analog. But of course they fixed that by doing, well, no, it did depend heavily on it being analog, because the further down you held it, the harder the stream, and if you held it till it clicked, Mario stood still. And they just fixed that by, bottom trigger is you can still move, button is stand still, and they both have the same water pressure. So, they fixed that fairly easily. There's more buttons to work with, so it ended up not being a problem. I think one of the reasons I have such a hard time getting into Sunshine and Galaxy on this collection is that the camera has not been updated at all. It behaves exactly the same as it did in the originals. And that just makes no sense, because I'm holding a traditional style controller with dual stick, and Galaxy kind of gets a pass because it didn't have that second stick. I believe you had to hold down a button, or no, you had to use the D-pad, I think, to move the camera. So, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like they just ported those controls. So this analog control stick acts just like the D-pad on the Wii Remote, and that's stupid. I'm trying to get a better look, and the camera's clacking around at like predetermined intervals, and I'm just like, what is the point of this lovely analog control stick if I can't fucking use it? For the longest, that was my issue with some controller support, because for the longest it just seemed to be essentially official versions of Joy to Key, if that makes sense. You like, before there was any real controller support in general, you used Joy to Key, which, if you're not familiar with it or programs like it, it just directly maps controller inputs to keyboard and mouse inputs. Just raw does. And what that means is, even though you're working with an analog stick, the analog stick is still just WSAD. And while looking's fine, because that's generally the mouse, and it is smooth and analog control, with this, it's just, there is no, even if you do this, you're running at full speed, because there's no, keyboard buttons aren't analog. And so I remember this specifically very early on in Payday 2, which is one of the first. Me and a friend of mine used to play it a lot, and it was one of the first ones I played as far as on my PC with a controller that didn't have full controller support at the time. I'm pretty sure it does now. And I could be talking out my ass on this. I'm pretty sure it was PC exclusive for a little while, and then ultimately it was. But even before it moved to consoles, they updated the controller support to actually give you analog movement. Aim was fine, but I kind of learned to shoot in Mass Effect 1, which is a stupid thing I know. but it was the first one that I spent a significant amount of time working to improve my aim. And if you've played Mass Effect 1, you know that when you first get guns, especially the sniper rifle, it sways. It sways hard, and the more you upgrade it, the steadier your aim. I got used to working with that movement to the point where I aim like 25% of my aiming is shifting my body, which works out in multiplayer settings where you don't just want to be sat perfectly still aiming down the right. So it's, you know, it's worked most of the time, except when I don't have analog and I can't. So I would, like, you know, I would do like I was gonna do, but instead of just moving slightly and getting the shot, I'd get and it was a mess. It was always a mess. Anyway, playing these games with this controller has just been so nice to me. And then so I decided to look up. I raided my friend's Steam library, who, you know, we share. Well, he shares it to me, and I've offered to share back, but he's like, it's too much of a hassle. And to be fair, he owns pretty much everything I own anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. Like, the one thing I think on my library that I've been berating him to play is Night in the Woods because I know he'd enjoy it. But, like, other than that, I don't even think there's anything in my library he wants to play. So, but anyway, I raided his library for, just out of curiosity. One of the videos in my, like, night noise, I have, like, a playlist of any videos that I know almost by heart, as far as, like, they're not gonna surprise me if something louder happens, to play at night. And one of them is Vinny playing Firewatch. And I'd been wanting to play it for a while, just curious as to how different it could play out, so I raided. So I found Firewatch in his library. I'm raiding Hades from him, and I'm raiding Persona 4 Golden, which I didn't know he'd picked up. So good on you, man. That's a good one. You'll enjoy it, I'm pretty sure. You don't watch these. And while I was waiting for everything to download, I just pulled up Binding of Isaac on a whim. And it's a game that I have a lot of time in, but not on PC. Honestly, I have hundreds of hours in it on my Vita, because way back when it originally came out for the Vita and was, you know, basic Afterbirth, which was the standard for so long, I would take it to work with me and play it under the desk on slow days, or like on my lunch break or whatever. And when I say slow days, I'm talking about like in the dead of winter, when no one's using a travel trailer, and we would get like maybe 3 people through the front door a day, and that was it. Like, the shop would be mostly empty. They'd just be down there chilling next to a space heater for most of the day. Like, we're talking about truly dead. So, while I've got a lot of time in that game, my Steam version doesn't reflect it. But today I got one of the most wonderfully broken runs I have ever seen. It was amazing. And it started very simply with taking a bet on buying a Steam sale coupon. There's an item in it called Steam Sale, which discounts all shop items by half, right? And then the very next floor, there was a greed mini-boss, and he dropped another one, and that made all of the items in the shop free. So I would just raid the shop when I got there, all of it for free. And then I ran across a shop with one of those little re-rolls at the top. So I cleaned out the shop, re-rolled it, and it restocked all the items. And I just did this again and again. And then the shop re-rolled a drop item that did what because the one in the shop takes, when the re-rolls in the shop, it takes the place of the donation box, and you have to put a coin in it to re-roll. But then it dropped an item in the shop that did that for free whenever you bought something in the shop. So I spent like 15 minutes in the shop rating different pickups, just like boosting the crap out of my stats with pills. I ran across a wonderful two-piece um, where I was creating a whole bunch of familiars with the potato peeler, which takes a heart container and gives you a cube of meat. And if you get 2 cubes of meat, you get a head. You get 3 cubes of meat, you get a small meat boy. And then 4 and 5. At 5, you get a full meat boy. It might be 4. But on top of that, I found another item that would, whenever you had 2 soul hearts, you could use it and convert those 2 soul hearts into a full regular heart. So I went back and forth on this until I'm pretty sure I had 5 full meat boys. Just running around. I found this mega bomb that was a one-time use that opened literally everything on the floor, regardless of whether you were in the room or not. And it happened to be the floor with Mom, which has, I don't know how you access it normally, but it forces open the boss rush, or if you're on the second final level that opens up after you beat the first final level a few times, it opens the way into the third set of floors, where you end up fighting Hush. It forces that open regardless of whether or not, because normally you have to meet requirements. Like, I'm pretty sure with Hush you have to get to the final boss in 20 minutes and beat it. Like, you've got to blaze through there real quick for Hush. I don't know what the requirements are for the boss rush, but like, so I dominated the boss rush. I unlocked like 9 items just chilling in the store doing things. I was getting like tarot cards and spawning blood banks and using the money, using other tarot cards to spawn slots and rolling slots and just going back and forth. And finally, I'm sitting here. I've got full heart containers. I have 5 super meat boys. I have flying. I have like quad tiers. The only thing I didn't like, that I didn't realize when I picked it up, is I got that one that, like, when you fire them, they stay still and they either hang there for a few seconds or until you release fire. So I was having a tap fire, which wasn't that big of a deal because honestly I wasn't doing much with my tiers. I had 5 meat boys bum rushing enemies for me and destroying them. I also had this jar that every time I killed an enemy, it would put a couple of flies in the jar, up until 20 flies, and then I'd let them out and then fill the jar up again. I didn't have to do anything else on this run. I completely destroyed it. It was beautiful. And then after I finished that run, Firewatch was done downloading, so I've been playing Firewatch up until about an hour ago, when I washed the dogs and got a shower. So now you're caught up. One thing that I haven't gone into detail in, that I'm upset I haven't because it was the day of self-sabotage, is talking about how much I enjoyed the Future Connected, which is the bonus chapter on Xenoblade Chronicles. Gosh, you can really tell that that was developed fresh. The environments are beautiful. Like, the only, like, don't get me wrong, the base game Definitive Edition is still amazing. They completely redid the character models instead of just up-resing textures. At least for most of the people-esque ones. I think they did for the Nopon as well, but Nopon still have texture faces, which, fine, honestly, it's not that big a deal. And by that I mean, like, in the original release, everything had texture faces. So instead of having a physical mouth or actual eyes, it was a texture. Because this was originally a Wii game that came out in 2010, and it was massive. So, yeah, they cut some corners on the faces. Well, this takes that corner cutting and puts it back in. And about the only thing that they didn't really do was, another limitation of the time was that the environments could be a little blocky. Not excessively blocky. Somewhere between, like maybe PS2. Like, it's, like, noticeable, if you're looking for it, and then in a couple of places where it's like you like when you're supposed to have like full cylinders, you know, you can really tell it there. But for the most part, it's fine. The textures are updated; they're still beautiful. The backgrounds are gorgeous. Um, but then you jump over to the bonus chapter, the epilogue that they tacked on, where they obviously like had to model everything, and it looks like I didn't really scrutinize it, but it looked like they even there's a single area, which no spoilers, but there's a single area that you visit in that you do visit in the base game, and everything else is a new place. But even the old area seemed to be rebuilt, or at the very least touched up more than it was in base game. And it just shows so well. And like, I think my favorite thing is the finish on Shulk's weapon in the epilogue. It's just like, it's sort of a matte, you know, the basic Monado is sort of a flat matte finish, where this has, I don't even know how to explain it. Almost like this metal, where it's not shined like this, but it's not matte either. It's more like shine with a coat that kind of looks like frost over it, like frosted glass. I don't know, it's just the texture on it is so noticeably better, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It just looks so much better than the flat red of the base Monado. And just that, and, you know, the environments being, you know, smooth rolling hills instead of smooth rolling hill. You got actual thing. It just, like, it really was a beautiful little thing. The story was fun. It really brought a lot of a character that didn't get as much closure as they needed. Don't get me wrong, they were still a very solid and great character in the base, but it was very, you know, that their story was definitely, to be fair, it's not the one that was being told in the base game. The base game is very much Shulk's story, and other players come in and out as they relate to him. But, you know, it begins and ends with Shulk, because that's the story they're telling. And then they go back with this extra chapter and basically finish telling a story that you kind of picked up in the middle of in the base game, because when they join your party, they're already having a story, and then it doesn't quite get finished because it needs to go past Shulk's nice little ending, and it's more him along for the ride this time around. And that's cool. It was cool to see it really focus on this other character, because I like them, and it was cool to see their story wrapped up and the story of their race wrapped up, and just great. And then there were the two new party members. I'm not going to spoil who they are, but they were just my favorite of that type of character across the Xenoblade Chronicles. I've only, well, I was going to say across all of the games, but I've only played Chronicles and X. Well, I'll say this, without spoiling what they are, what they do, who they are, and all that stuff. It's two Nopon, and they're my two favorite Nopon in all of Xenoblade that I have experienced. Like, you have, and unfortunately, they're just, I love them. I love them so much. I love them as much as the Nopon party member in the original. They are that, and taken to a beautiful next level. And it's nothing like the Nopon you get in Chronicles X, who is just there for a running joke. His entire existence is so that they can keep saying he looks like a potato and they want to eat him. That's his entire character. He is the butt of a repeated joke. And they do it all the time. You meet this character like 2 chapters into a 14-chapter game, and his joke is old by chapter 3. And then you have 11 more chapters of them making this same "I want to eat him" joke because they happened to find him in a bin of turnips or something that happened to also look like no pond. They run it into the ground. They run it into the ground, out the other side, spin around, drive another hole all the way through, and then do it again. I hate it. And because I hate it, I hate him. And he deserves better than that because he has some good character moments. And the character that consists on making the jokes has good character moments. But they're both kind of spoiled by this stupid joke that they will not let go. It's not done funnily. It's almost never funny. It's always predictable. And it's just like, stop bullying the poor potato man. Leave him alone. I know you're only 14, but stop. Learn. Get some help. And it hurts me because she's played by one of my favorite, by a personal favorite voice actor. I can't remember her name because I'm awful with names, but it's the same voice actor that does Morgana in Persona 5 and Sothis in Fire Emblem Three Houses. She has other work that I'm failing to remember at the moment. But yeah, like, this voice actor is so much better than this role. Just like, it's like when, way back when in Base Destiny, when Peter Dinklage was your ghost. Like, you know, they booked bare minimum time with him, either because he was expensive or because they were intimidated while working with him. You know he's better than every single line he delivered in that game, but they probably handed him the script the day of. He, like, read it, like, twice, and they just didn't... I don't know. It was definitely on direction, because you know Peter's better than that. That kind of thing. Or maybe he's just not fit for voice acting. You know, some actors aren't. That's fine. Honestly, voice acting is a very specific kind of profession. Stephen, I can't remember his name. I almost called him Stephen Fry, but it's not that, because, like, I think his name is Stephen, and he plays Fry in Futurama. He was going on and on and on about how about how ridiculous it is that these big companies go to famous screen actors instead of voice actors for animated films, because it's like, A, you're not going to get as good of a performance out of some of them because that's not what they're trained in. You have these voice actors that have trained their entire career to do just that, and then you have these screen actors that are used to their facial expression, their posture, all of that being able to carry their acting. And it's apples and oranges, because unless you're doing full mocap with the actor, what's the point? You're not getting the full experience of that actor. A good example is Kiefer Sutherland as Venom Snake in Phantom Pain. Kiefer does good, and honestly, for the most part, I believe with Ground Zeroes, they did do facial mocap with... I have already forgotten his name. My brain went back to Peter Dinklage, and I have completely forgotten Kiefer Sutherland's name. There it is.
Did you get your medicine order?
Yes.
Okay. Because Lindsay and her appointment's at 2 something, and she said, of course, we'll go back and get it. But I told her that so I wouldn't forget too.
Yeah, that sounded... because I think it said at like 2:30, which is usually done before that anyway, but... Yeah.
Well, she'll go to her eye appointment, and then we'll go back and get it.
Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
It's 1, 2...
It's both, so...
That's fine. That's fine. Just so
Yeah.
I know. Okay.
Okay.
Well, good night.
Good night. Sorry about that. I'm not cutting it out. It's too much work. But yeah, like, I'm pretty sure for Ground Zeroes, they did actually do full facial capture for Kiefer Sutherland. Either that, or they did a base level of it to work from. And because of that, when it's close-up face scenes, you get Kiefer Sutherland to an extent. And it works that way. Like, I think, just like I think in Death Stranding, they did some, not all, of Sam Bridges' mocap. Like, I think they did facial mocap with Norman Reedus, and body mocap was somebody else. Or maybe the body because like there's a different actor credited for his body mocap, but it may be that they did cinematics with Norman and did general gameplay with somebody else instead of making Norman Reedus do all of the ridiculous things he does that Sam does in the private room, or like making him fall down and pretend to be carrying heavy things. But like, I feel like I am watching an actor when I watch Norman Reedus in Death Stranding, or even better example, when I watch Mads Mikkelsen in Death Stranding. I feel like I'm getting a full performance from that actor, but that is very, very, very much the exception in this medium. So, if you're not going to go to the length of that, why get them? And a perfect example of that is Kojima only really did that for his main characters. Phantom Pain, going back to Phantom Pain, is a good example. Troy Baker plays Ocelot. Troy Baker is a career voice actor. You know, so you do have a big screen actor playing Snake, but you've got a career voice actor playing Ocelot. And Kojima liked Troy so much, he brought him back for a major character in Death Stranding. And he does it better than any screen actor, I think, would do it. Even if I'm not convinced the face of that character matched Troy Baker's voice. But that's nitpicking. Probably because I've heard him so much as either Kanji or Ocelot. And so when I'm playing, you know, the Kojima game, I'm thinking about Ocelot when I'm hearing Troy Baker. And this character very much does not look like Ocelot. But anyway, yeah, so it's like you're going to get better voice performances from voice actors. You know, as cameos, it's fun. If you're going to go to the trouble of doing full mocap, fine. That's fine with the screen actor. But if you're going to... if the animation's all going to be done separate from the voices, just get voice actors. It's honestly, it's a totally different way. These people talk for 8 hours. They have to... and I'm not talking about talk like this. They have to act with their voice for several hours through several different takes. Then they've got to do, like, I think they call them exertions. I almost said excretions, and that is a totally different thing. Which is all of the grunts and the, you know, all that good stuff. It's just like, these people are very well trained for that, where screen actors probably wouldn't be able to keep up with it as much, because again, voice is only a small, well, I don't want to say small, voice is only part of a screen actor's presence. It's mostly going to be about their body language, their facial expressions, their actions, all that stuff. With a voice actor, it's just their voice. They can be jumping up and down, screaming, doing, you know, they can be jumping up and down, spinning around, all that good stuff. It doesn't matter if their voice isn't good enough. It's all their voice. So it's like the difference between, I don't know a good metaphor. I was going to make a metaphor of this. It's like a general practitioner and a specialist. Voice actors are specialists, and actors are general practitioners. That's not to say that, you know, actors can't have commanding voices. Morgan Freeman comes to mind. Patrick Stewart comes to mind. Christopher Lee, God rest his soul. Ian McKellen. You know, there's plenty of screen actors that have amazing voice presence. But speaking in the general, 9 times out of 10, You're hiring them for their face, for their screen presence, and you're not going to get that through just their voice. You're not going to get the same present. I'm just reiterating the same thing over and over again because that's what I do. But anyway, yeah. So that was. I don't remember how I got on this. How did I get on this? Oh, but yeah, I remember. But I guess circling it back around to my original point, even a fantastic actor, voice or screen, can suffer from bad directing. So, you can take fantastic actors and just make them look awful with the wrong directing and the wrong editing. And I think that's what happened with, like, I can't remember her name, but the voice actress that I like in Xenoblade Chronicles X, and another example being Peter Dinklage as the Ghost, because he had the voice presence for something like that, but it was, I don't know if the voice director was just intimidated to be working with a big name like that. But it ended up falling flat, and going back and hiring, full-time voice actor Nolan North was a good move. Anyway, I've rambled for quite a while. I'm honestly a little intimidated, or a little worried about. I can't see how long it's been running. That's sort of been one of the reasons I don't like doing. I like that I can't see and distract myself. I don't like that I can't see the runtime. I may have to start putting a timer up on the screen or something to keep these in check. But anyway, I'm getting warm. Because I was fresh out the shower. So I'm going to call this now, and I will see you all tomorrow. Oof, nearly 40 minutes.